When you're too scared to move, but you don't want to stay, and you wish that things were different, but you know that's not the way, you know that's not the way things are. Oh, it isn't quite as bad as it might be, but it isn't half as good as you'd hoped.
I didn't know you could play the guitar, Billy.
Oh, I didn't know that anyone...
Don't worry. I enjoyed it. It was lovely.
I'm getting better, I suppose, but I still don't play as well as I'd like to.
Sounded fine to me. Oh, I've always wanted to play a musical instrument, but, well, the older you get, the more realistic you become.
Oh, but Sarah, that's not realistic. That's just pessimistic. You mustn't give up like that. You're not old.
I suppose not.
You're only middle-aged.
Thank you.
Well, you look quite young.
You're often here alone, aren't you? Do you like being alone?
Sometimes I do. A bit. Not a lot. When there's no one around, I like to play videotapes.
Yes, I know.
How did you know? I thought it was a secret.
Ah, well, I'm even older and wiser than I look.
I know. Why don't you learn to play the guitar? I'll give you lessons if you like.
Oh, that's sweet of you, Billy, but I don't think so. I don't even have a guitar.
Well, you could buy one. You earn a lot more than I do, and I'll give you lessons free.
I'm pretty unmusical, you know.
Not with me as a teacher. Just think, you're being offered lessons free from a leading guitar virtuoso.
I wonder if a leading guitar virtuoso could find the time to collect 2 cans of film.
All right. When?
The sooner the better. How about now? I hope you don't mind my using your office.
I'll get that film now.
Oh, put a couple of coins in the meter as you go, will you?
Yes, Mr. Stenhouse.
That's true, of course. But don't you find it sad that fewer and fewer people are going to the cinema? In Europe, at any rate.
But they're still watching movies, only they're watching them at home or on their televisions or videos. And that's just as good, isn't it?
No, it's not as good. It's not the same experience.
Well, it's easier and it's cheaper.
Yes, but the quality of the experience is less intense.
Oh.
Look, the cinema used to be a place where people could, well, dream.
You can dream at home. At least I can.
Perhaps you have less interesting dreams than most people.
Don't you believe it, Prodip? You are a romantic, a real romantic.
No, I'm not. Really, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
Oh, Mr. Ralston, if you come over here, I'll pour you the best cup of coffee you've ever tasted.
Now, that's an offer.
I don't know why I've never used this machine before. It's as simple as ABC. There. Oh, it looks a bit weak.
Looks a bit like water.
Perhaps I did something wrong.
No. It's the machine, Mrs. B. It's a very complicated machine.
What about a nice cup of tea?
Great Valley BOP at 3:15 I had. So CEC, it was 3:15. I'm selling at 3:15. Then to CEC, selling 3:15 was CEC BOP.
A tea auction in Colombo.
17 was Carson, next BOP at 15 CEC. Eddie started by Carson's, 380 is Carson's, all over. Eddie's car, then selling at 380 was Carson, other BOP at 20 block.
For many third world countries, tea is a convenient cash crop and an important export. The world's biggest tea producers are India, China, and Sri Lanka. But other countries, such as Kenya and Malawi, are fast gaining in importance. The world's largest importer of tea is Great Britain. In fact, Great Britain takes almost 25% of all world exports. Well, after a period of decline, people in England have again started drinking more tea. Here at Sir John Lyon House in the City of London, teas are tasted and examined and checked for flavour and quality. One of the men in charge of this is Dominic Bedard. What exactly do you do to taste tea?
Well, we will show you in a minute what is laid on, but basically it's a question of comparison between one cup and another to assess it for its flavour and its strength and for its keeping quality. And our daily routine here is to do exactly that. The tea has to be weighed in a precise measurement into each cup, and the liquor is then infused for 6 minutes in our case to make quite sure that all the flavour that is available in that tea comes out. And the taster then goes down the batch and he compares one tea against another so that you can see whether their performance is better or worse than previously. And you also have another standard for valuation purposes so that you know on any given week whether the market has gone up or down and therefore whether you should increase or diminish your valuation.
Are there really big differences between teas from different parts of the world?
Yes, very considerable differences, not only from countries of origin, but between individual teas from the same estate made on different days. And I think this is one of the interesting facets of tea, in that you can't sell it as a commodity in bulk. It has to be sold in small parcels because each individual day's manufacture can taste different to the previous day. I think that the climate plays probably the largest part here, and the tea, for example, that grows at 6,000 or 7,000 feet in equatorial Africa or in Ceylon produces a certain flavour, possibly because of the coolness of the climate or the elevation itself, which is not available on tea which is grown in a lower elevation. But in addition, tea which is grown during wet weather and is growing fast produces less attractive character and flavour than a tea that is growing very slowly in dry conditions. And this applies really throughout the tea growing world.
What constitutes the leaf? What part of the bush do you use?
You take the most succulent part, which is the little shoot at the top, the bud and the leaves on either side of it. And these pluck easily. They're very brittle and very juicy, and this produces the best flavour. Those people who have less stringent rules about plucking will go lower into the bush, and they will diminish the quality of the tea as a result.
What happens to that tea once it's been plucked?
When it has been plucked, is then processed in a tea factory, which is a fairly complicated procedure and requires a lot of expertise, because you can very easily damage good quality tea that comes in from the field by mishandling in the factory. But in the process, the tea is reduced from being a green, brittle leaf, and it is then put through various machines which reduce its size to a small particle, which is then fired in a tea dryer, and the particles are then sorted, and the finished product is what people see in their packet, a small, brittle, crisp fragment.
Which has just been dried.
Which has been fired. Yes, it's as if it's been put in an oven. It is, in fact, a type of oven that fires it. And this reduces the moisture content down to a very low level, so that the tea then retains its freshness, and it will liquor again quickly when infused with water. As far as this particular operation that you're seeing here is concerned, the tea is tasted and valued by us prior to being sold by us. And we are entrusted by the companies concerned overseas to do this procedure for them. They don't know what is possibly happening in the market from a day-to-day basis. They also may not know exactly the finer points of the tasting, on which depends the value of the tea.
OK, tell Prodip I'm fairly happy with that.
Right.
It's perhaps a little too, how shall I put it?
Expensive?
A little too sophisticated.
Yes. Prodip does think he's the most sophisticated man in the world.
Oh, he's not so much sophisticated, more...
pretentious.
Yes. Have you been reading a dictionary?
No, Mr. Stenhouse, I have not. Don't forget you're meeting with Mr. Smith this afternoon.
Oh, heavens. Who told you to arrange that?
You did, Mr. Stenhouse.
Dad,
for you?
It's not Smith, is it?
No,
Oh, good.
it's your accountant.
That's even worse.
Oh, Billy, I'm sorry. This shop's so difficult to find, and Ted kept me late talking about how he'd got the most idiotic accountant in the country.
Oh, that's all right. I'm having a good time. This one's beautiful, Sarah.
Oh, you've got to be joking. It's much too expensive.
It's not that expensive, really, when you consider it's one of the best guitars you can buy.
I'm only a beginner. I don't know how long I shall want to keep it. I want something a great deal cheaper.
The less you pay, the less you get. This one, for instance. Extremely cheap.
Oh, but quite good?
No, quite bad. Absolute rubbish, to tell you the truth.
Good enough for me?
That depends on how unmusical you are.
Thanks a lot. I thought your job was to be polite to your customers.
I'm an artist, a musician. I'm not going to tell people lies just to be polite.
Show her that one. Next to it.
All right. It's slightly more expensive and slightly better.
It's not bad, is it?
It's the better of the two. In other words, it's not rubbish.
Fine.
It's just a little better than rubbish.
Don't be such a perfectionist. Just want to have some fun with it.
Try this one instead. It's only a bit more expensive, but the tone is much richer.
I'll take it.
Great. Well done. Hey, when's your first concert appearance?
Oh, I don't know, about 20 years from now. I'm in David Lawson's sound studio. This is a mixing console, and everything in the studio is connected to it. David, not conducting an orchestra, but seated at a synthesizer. David, how did synthesizers come about? Did somebody invent them?
They've been with us a long time, in actual fact. The early days, a device called an onde Martineau, it was in the 30s, played in orchestras and on early sci-fi films. It sounded a bit like a soprano wavering away. But it's commonly accepted that Dr. Robert Moog was the father of today's synthesizer. His earliest synthesizer came in several different boxes and connected up to one keyboard and made one sound at a time. Now that could be anything, a musical sound or a wind noise or whatever. For instance, the onde Martineau that I mentioned, this early French invention, sounded a bit sort of a bit like a whistle crossed with soprano. Nowadays, the same sort of sound might be something like that, you know. And they take many shapes or forms. A simple synthesized sound may use just one oscillator. Now, if I were to say an oscillator is quite simply just a voice, and we'll just call it a voice, and it would sound like that, or like that, or like that. They can sound like anything. It's just using one voice. I've ended up with this particular synthesizer because it's capable of reproducing very simple sounds to very complex sounds. We can get bell-like sounds, or we can get voice-like sounds, we can get string-like sounds, or the well-known, or I should say, we can get sounds using a short attack, which means a sound which is pretty immediate, but with another sound coming in afterwards. So if I hold the keyboard, I get another sound coming in afterwards. not only can I play tunes, I can record tunes into this particular synthesizer. And Three Blind Mice, for example. So I would play that, and now I can record it. Whoops. And it'll play it back to me. Complete with mistake. So I can then take another sound and play along with it. And pick yet another sound. And I could go on up to 16 tracks and produce quite an arrangement of Three Blind Mice. Having done that, I could go over to the terminal and press a couple of buttons and have the music come up on the VDU, on the screen, in other words, as printed music.
I'd like to see that.
Certainly. So I press PF3, which is just the name of a button, an H for hard copy, because I'd like the music to be printed out automatically. Three Blind Mice.
So quick?
Yes, it's quick. It's actually quicker than writing it out yourself if you had to.
How does the sound of a real instrument compare with the sound that you can make on the synthesizer?
I think it'd probably be easier if I showed you at the keyboard. I think it would make more sense.
Thank you.
Now, for example, here we have the synthesizer voices of this particular synthesizer playing a trumpet sound. If I go to the terminal, punch a couple of buttons, I'll play you a real trumpet.
I don't think I can tell the difference.
There is a difference. Harmonically, we're talking about a note has harmonics. And if I were to go up or down with a real trumpet, the harmonic structure of that note would change.
What can the synthesizer do to a human voice?
What can a synthesizer do to a human voice? Well, many things. We can filter it, and we could play it higher or lower, or make you sound wobbly, or whatever.
Can you do that to my voice?
Certainly.
Let's have a go. What can the synthesizer do to the human voice?
That was your question, I believe.
What can the synthesizer do to the human voice?
It's Three Blind Mice, yeah. Not sung very well, I mean.
Thank you, David. And goodbye.
But I don't really like detective stories.
You'll like this one a lot. I'm pretty sure I know who the murderer is.
Well, tell me. Then I shan't have to watch it.
Halliday. Yes, Halliday. That's the name on Miss Cohen's passport, so that's the name she'd normally use when travelling. Yes, she's got a return ticket. Her flight's due in this afternoon. Thanks. Bye.
Well, thank goodness everything's clear now.
The hotel had her home address, so we were able to speak to her husband. He told us that she normally travels under her maiden name, Curran, for business purposes.
And I'll be hearing from you again quite soon, I suppose.
You'll be hearing from somebody about the video business, yes.
And you know where to find me?
If we need to, yes.
Yes, well, thank you.
Oh, just one other thing, Mr. Hutchinson.
Yes?
In future, think twice before you share a taxi.
Of course, yes.
Our elusive Miss Curran is due back this afternoon.
3:30.
Time for a coffee, then. So what do we call her? Halliday or Curran?
Either.
Makes life complicated, doesn't it? Miss Felicity Curran?
Yes?
We're police officers, if we could have a word.
About the man in the hotel.
Yes.
I saw it in the paper. What would you like to know?
Would you like a coffee?
Yes.
Good. His name was Matthew Gibbs.
Yes?
You remember him?
Yes. But I can't tell you much about him, I'm afraid. That evening was the only time I met him.
Did you speak to him at all?
Oh, yes. Twice. The first time I'd gone to reception to sign for something, and I left my pen on the desk, and he came after me with it. I don't think that we exchanged more than half a dozen words altogether. And later, I saw him again outside the lift. Oh, hello. I think we said even less than we had the first time.
Did you see anyone with him or following him?
Not then, no. Earlier, I'd seen him with a couple of airline pilots. Oh, no, one of them wasn't a pilot. He was a chief steward.
Yes?
He told me while I was waiting for a taxi. In fact, he started to tell me everything about himself after his friend had left him.
His friend left him?
Yes, they were sitting in the foyer. I think they were having coffee after their dinner. What time is this, Miss Curran? 7:45.
Miss Curran, this might be very important, so I want you to be absolutely sure.
I am.
You saw these two men, one a pilot and one a chief steward, sitting in the foyer together.
Yes. And then? And then, at 7:45, one of them, the pilot, left the other one, went over to the lift and went up in it.
Miss Curran, would you swear to that if you had to?
I would, yes. Come on.
You know, I think Felicity Curran is my ideal.
Your ideal? I thought you were happily married.
My ideal witness.
Well, she's certainly broken Lee's alibi.
Here he is. Welcome back.
You don't want to ask me more questions, do you?
Just one or two, if you don't mind.
I've already told you everything I can.
Well, we'd like you to tell us again, please.
Does that mean Lee is the murderer?
Smith was furious, I can tell you. Apparently, fewer and fewer people are watching the program.
Yes, it's funny, isn't it? I don't know anyone who watches it.
I don't think you move in the right circles, Corin.
Oh, Prozip, I'm sorry I forgot to tell you. The Prime Minister rang to invite you for tea.
Oh, dear, oh, dear, oh, dear.